The wind whispered through the empty fields of rural Tennessee, carrying with it the faint scent of hay and the promise of a story that would change everything. In the quiet stillness of a late autumn afternoon, a question hung in the air, spoken in a deep, deliberate voice that seemed to echo through the vast emptiness. Have you ever looked into a dog's eyes and felt that it knows more than you could ever imagine? At the heart of this mystery was a small veterinary clinic in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, a town so unassuming you'd miss it if you blinked while driving down Highway 58. Oak Ridge Animal Clinic sat nestled between a quaint bakery that smelled of cinnamon rolls and a feed store with a rusted sign swinging in the breeze. Its glass door etched with paw prints from years of furry visitors. Inside, a stray dog, a gaunt, black and tan German shepherd, with eyes that held 1,000 unspoken truths, lay in a kennel. Her body curled tight, her gaze fixed on nothing and everything all at once. She hadn't touched water in days. Not since she'd been brought in by a local farmer who'd found her trembling in a ditch, her ribs stark against her matted fur. The staff at the clinic had tried everything freshwater, broth, even coaxing her with bits of chicken, but she refused, her body shrinking further into itself, her silence a puzzle that no one could solve. And then, when the head veterinarian, Dr. Carter, opened her mouth to check for an obstruction, he froze, his breath catching in his throat, his weathered hands trembling as he saw something that defied explanation. What they found inside that stray dog's mouth would unravel a mystery so profound, so haunting, that it would change the lives of everyone who crossed her path, revealing a truth that had been buried for far too long. My name is Josh Bennett, and I'm a 28-year-old veterinary assistant at Oak Ridge Animal Clinic, a place I've called home since I dropped out of college 6 years ago, trading textbooks for stethoscopes and lecture halls for kennels. I grew up in Oak Ridge, a town where everyone knows your name and your business, where the biggest excitement is the annual county fair and the occasional gossip about who's dating whom. I've always loved animals, dogs, cats, horses, even the occasional ornery goat. But I never thought my job would lead me to a moment that would redefine my life. That Tuesday morning in November 2024 started like any other. I walked into the clinic at 7:30. Mo. The bell above the door jingling as I balanced a tray of water bowls in one hand and a cup of gas station coffee in the other. The air smelled of antiseptic and wet fur, a familiar comfort after years on the job. I was halfway through my morning rounds when I reached the kennel at the end of the hall, where the stray dog we'd later name Abby lay on a thin blanket, her body so still I had to watch closely to see the rise and fall of her chest. She was a German shepherd, or at least mostly she had the breed's sharp ears and intelligent eyes. But her frame was too thin, her coat patchy from malnutrition, her spirit dimmed by whatever hardships she'd endured. We didn't know her story, not yet. But there was something about her, a quiet intensity, a guardedness that felt almost human. I knelt beside her kennel, setting the water bowl down, my voice soft as I tried to coax her. "Hey, girl, you need to drink something," I said, pushing the bowl closer. But Abby didn't just turn away. She recoiled, her body shrinking back against the wall, her eyes wide with a fear that made my stomach twist. It wasn't the fear of a dog who didn't trust humans. It was deeper, sharper, as if the water itself was a threat, as if I'd offered her poison instead of life. I sat back on my heels, my brow furrowing, a chill creeping up my spine. I'd seen scared dogs before, abused ones, abandoned ones who'd been through hell. But this was different. Abby wasn't just scared, she was haunted. And I had no idea why. Dr. Samuel Carter, the clinic's head veterinarian, walked in a few minutes later, his white coat slightly wrinkled, his gray hair tousled from a morning spent wrestling with a particularly stubborn cat. Dr. Carter had seen it all in his 35 years of practice: broken bones, snake bites, litters of orphaned kittens. But the look on his face when he knelt beside Abby told me this was something new, even for him. "Let's take a look." "Sweetheart," he said gently, his hand steady as he coaxed Abby to open her mouth, his fingers gentle but firm as he tilted her head back. I held my breath, watching as he peered inside, expecting to see a tooth abscess or a piece of debris, something routine we could fix with antibiotics and a good night's rest. But what I saw instead made my heart stop. There, embedded deep in the soft tissue of Abby's palate, was a small, metallic object, no bigger than a grain of rice, its surface glinting in the fluorescent light. It wasn't bone, wasn't a tooth, wasn't anything natural. It was man-made, foreign, wrong. Doctor. Carter's face went pale, his hand stilling as he met my eyes, his voice barely above a whisper. Josh, this isn't right, he said, his words heavy with a dread I'd never heard from him before. We need to get an X-ray. Right now, I nodded, my hands trembling as I helped him lift Abby onto a gurney. Her body limp, but her eyes still sharp, watching us with an intensity that felt like a warning. As we wheeled her into the X-ray room, the hum of the machine, a low buzz in the background, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were about to uncover something far bigger than a stray dog's medical mystery, something that would pull us into a darkness we weren't prepared to face. The X-ray machine whirred to life, casting Abby's fragile frame in a stark, glowing outline on the screen, her ribs and spine a haunting map of survival. Dr. Carter adjusted the settings, his focus laser sharp, while I stood beside him, my hands clenched at my sides, my heart pounding with a mix of curiosity and fear. The image came into focus, and there it was, the metallic object in Abby's mouth. Clearer now, its shape unmistakable. It was a chip, but not like any pet microchip I'd ever seen. The ones we used at the clinic were simple, passive devices, designed to store an ID number for lost pets. But this chip was different, larger, more complex, with tiny circuits visible even in the grainy X-ray. What the hell is that? I whispered, my voice barely audible over the hum of the machine. Doctor. Carter didn't answer right away. He just stared at the screen, his jaw tight, his fingers tracing the outline of the chip, as if he could will it to make sense. I don't know, he said finally, his voice grim, but we need to get it out. The surgery was scheduled for the next morning, a procedure that should have been routine but felt anything but. I barely slept that night, my mind racing with questions. What was the chip? Who had put it there? Why was Abby so afraid? When we operated the next day, the clinic was eerily quiet. The usual chatter of clients and barking dogs replaced by a tense stillness that seemed to mirror Abby's own silence. Dr. Carter worked with precision, his hands steady as he extracted the chip, a tiny, silver thing that looked harmless in the sterile light of the operating room, but carried a weight we couldn't yet understand. As he placed it in a metal tray, a faint, high-pitched hum emanated from it, a sound so soft I thought I'd imagined it at first. But Dr. Carter heard it too, his eyes widening as he looked at me. It's still active, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. This isn't just a chip, Josh. It's something else. What happened next was nothing short of a miracle. The moment the chip was removed, Abby's demeanor changed. She'd been lying on the table, her body tense, her breathing shallow. But as Dr. Carter sutured the incision, she lifted her head, her eyes softer now, less guarded. I brought a bowl of water to her, the same bowl she'd recoiled from the day before. And this time, she didn't hesitate. She drank, her tongue lapping at the water with a quiet desperation, as if she'd been dying of thirst her whole life and had only now been given permission to live. I knelt beside her, my hand resting gently on her back, tears prickling at the corners of my eyes as I watched her drink, the fear that had defined her melting away with each sip. It was as if the chip had been a shackle, a source of torment we couldn't see, and now, with it gone, Abby was free, or so I thought. That moment of peace didn't last long. 2 days later, as I was cleaning the kennels, the bell above the clinic door jingled, and a man walked in, a tall, weary figure in a dark jacket, his eyes hidden behind mirrored sunglasses, his voice cold and clipped as he spoke to the receptionist. "I'm here for the dog," he said, his tone leaving no room for questions. "The German Shepherd. She belongs to me." I stepped out from the back, Abby at my side, her leash in my hand. And the moment she saw him, her body went rigid, a low growl rumbling in her throat as she pressed herself against my leg, her fur bristling with fear. I looked at the man, then at Abby, and in that moment, every instinct I had screamed the same thing. If I let this man take her, I'd lose her forever. I tightened my grip on the leash, my voice steady despite the fear clawing at my chest. "She's not going anywhere," I said. And with that, our journey began, a journey that would take us far from the safety of Oak Ridge, into a world of secrets and shadows that neither of us were prepared to face. We ran that night, Abby and I, slipping out of the clinic under the cover of darkness, the stars above Tennessee. A cold, unblinking witness to our flight. I threw a few essentials into a backpack: dog food, a water bottle, a blanket, my old hunting knife, and drove my beat-up Chevy pickup down back roads I'd known since I was a kid. Roads so narrow the branches scraped the sides of the truck, their shadows dancing in the moonlight. Abby sat in the passenger seat, her body low, her eyes darting to every sound, every flicker of light, as if she knew we were being hunted. I didn't know who the man at the clinic was, didn't know why he wanted Abby, but I knew enough to trust her fear, to trust the way she'd growled at him, the way her body had trembled in his presence. We hid in a series of safe places over the next few days: abandoned barns, a friend's fishing cabin, a motel on the edge of Knoxville that didn't ask questions as long as you paid in cash. Each time I thought we were safe, I'd see signs of pursuit: a black sedan idling at a gas station, a man in a dark jacket watching us from across the street, a phone call to the clinic that Dr. Carter relayed to me in a hushed, urgent voice: "They're looking for you. Josh, be careful." I didn't know who they were, not yet, but I knew they weren't going to stop, and neither was I. Abby was more than a stray dog. Now she was my responsibility, my companion, my reason to keep going when every mile felt heavier than the last. As we moved from one hiding spot to the next, I started piecing together the puzzle of the chip, reaching out to an old college friend, Mia, who worked as a tech analyst in Nashville. I sent her photos of the chip, which I'd kept in a small plastic bag, and she called me back 2 days later, her voice trembling with a mix of awe and fear. "Josh, this isn't a pet chip," she said. Her words rushed. "Urgent. It's military grade, experimental." I traced its signature. "It's part of something called Project Hazel." I gripped the phone tighter, my heart pounding as I glanced at Abby, who was lying at my feet, her ears pricked, her eyes fixed on the door of the cabin we were hiding in. "What's Project Hazel?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the answer. Mia's voice dropped to a whisper. "It was a DARPA program. Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. They were testing behavioral control on animals, trying to turn them into weapons, spies, you name it." The chip in Abby's mouth. It was designed to manipulate her nervous system, control her actions, even her emotions. She was Subject 7. Josh. And from what I can tell, she's the only one who didn't break. I sat back, my mind reeling as I looked at Abby, this fragile, brave dog who'd somehow survived a nightmare I couldn't even imagine. She wasn't just a stray. She was a survivor, a rebel, a living testament to the strength of a spirit that refused to be controlled. And now, the people who'd created her wanted her back, to finish what they'd started, or to silence her for good. After weeks on the run, living off gas station sandwiches and stolen moments of sleep, I found a place where Abby and I could finally stop running: a small cabin by a lake in the Smoky Mountains, owned by an old family friend who'd moved away years ago, but left me the key in case I ever needed a refuge. The cabin was modest, its wooden walls weathered by time, its windows overlooking a glassy lake that reflected the towering pines like a mirror. We settled in, Abby and I, building a quiet life in the shadow of the mountains. A life where the ghosts of Project Hazel couldn't find us. I got a job at a local hardware store, keeping my head down. My story, simple. I was a guy who'd moved to the mountains with his dog, looking for a fresh start. Abby thrived in that new life, her coat growing thick and glossy, her eyes bright with a joy I hadn't thought possible when I first met her. She'd chase squirrels through the woods, splash in the lake on warm days, and sleep by the fire at night, her head resting on my knee as I read old paperbacks I found in the cabin's dusty shelves. But there were nights when the wind howled through the pines, carrying whispers of the past, and Abby would lift her head, her ears pricked, her gaze fixed on the dark expanse of the forest, as if she could still hear the hum of that chip, still feel the weight of the life she'd escaped. In those moments, I'd sit beside her, my hand on her back, my voice soft as I promised her she was safe, that she didn't have to run anymore. And she didn't. She stayed. Her loyalty. A quiet, unshakable thing, a bond forged in the crucible of our shared journey. Abby had fought a battle I'd never fully understand. A battle against a system that had tried to break her, to turn her into something she was never meant to be. She'd won, not through strength or size, but through the sheer force of her spirit, her refusal to surrender to the darkness that had tried to claim her. Her story was a reminder of the power of courage, of resilience, of the unbreakable will to survive, even when the odds are stacked against you. As I watched her sleep by the fire, the flames casting a warm glow over her fur, I thought about what she taught me, that even in the face of unimaginable cruelty, there's a light that can't be extinguished, a hope that can't be taken away. If you've ever doubted the strength of a brave heart, think of Abby, a small dog who beat a system, who found her way to freedom, who showed me that sometimes the greatest battles are won not with weapons, but with trust, with love, with the courage to keep going, no matter what.